Dudley's the one that's primarily working inside of Kudu to manage a project, to add data. But from the client side, if I'm a client of Dudley, I get access to this and I'm able to run these reports myself.
Yeah, yeah, we can pull you in as a remote access user, and you can navigate this just like we are, so you can
Yeah.
query all this information. And again, those reports that we can kick out, some of them are very, very detailed, and it's possible that that's really all you would want to. So this is a project overview report. Another example, hit the back end of this if you want to. You got raw data. This is just a full tab of basically every type of data point in the system accessible to you, which you can grab this and filter it and do a lot with it. If you're messing with an internal system at your company, that's probably a great way to pull a lot of information together. But yeah,
Wow. That's fantastic. So if I'm starting a new project somewhere and we want to get started with some data, you were telling me a little bit about, some of the capabilities, especially if the project's like on the East Coast. What are some of the things that you would do to set that up?
yeah, some projects over there, you can go to like a county appraisal district site, grab data from them, and we can pretty much just port that into Kudu and quickly build out a bunch of tracks, just to get hit the ground running. And with that, you can pretty much build out internal maps. But that helps when you're in the CAD. It's maybe hard to tell what owners are around you quickly, and this way you can query just like we did before and find where this one owner owns within a big field. So yeah, it's pretty versatile. Similarly, I mean, if somebody has spreadsheet data from some other project they're running, or for example, if they have kind of a rat's nest of title from a different client's project and they want us to memorialize all this data into one set, we can pull all of that in and solve the problem of having nine brokers all using different ownership reports and having all this chaos. You can pull all into this and have it all seamless.
Okay, so if I want to understand working interests a little bit better, how can Kudu help with that?
Yeah, so some really detailed answers you can get out of Kudu. One, yeah, if you're trying to, if you, the question is, what's my work interest or NRI, and maybe like a unit area, we can go and we can select a set of tracks specific to what you're planning to produce, and we can run a report of that selection of tracks, and it will summarize all that information, and even down to the horizon, and it will be able to tell you your working interest, what other lessees are in the area, how much of it's open or unleased, calculate an NRI, give you an idea of override. You can do all that in one summary report, which is really valuable for a lot of clients. That ability for Kudu to kind of do some complex calculations is really helpful. You can really, even with the way we track horizons in the system, everything's built out into horizons. You can label a target horizon and it will disregard other horizons that you're not interested in, but we still might have that information memorialized. But the way it does that, you can even do some quirky stuff where you might be trying to figure out the ownership into a horizon that doesn't really exist in title. So if you have a tract over here that is from surface to 10,000 feet, and then the next tract is surface 7,000 feet, you can kind of come up with just a weird interval of what's going on in the interim. Just with what's a common depth between the three tracks, and it'll come up with an ownership set for that.
Wow, really, really, really cool to see what's capable. I think it's not just that it's adding value through convenience and being able to do things faster, but it's actually just so much more structured and brings things into a really clean environment that you can just operate out of holistically, honestly. So very cool. So tons of questions being able to be answered like basically immediately. What's my leasehold position in a set of tracks? What are my working interests? What's my net revenue interest? Who are the service owners in this area? Who are the other leaseholders in the area?
Mm-hmm.
Is it all leased or not? Right. So really, really, really valuable. I want to hear some client stories because I know that there's been some moments where Kudu's really shined. You were telling me about a tract of land that, or tracts of land that you've been working on yourself through Kudu, and it's passed from three different companies. Why don't you kind of share how Kudu's helped with that?
Sure. Some smaller outfits like backed companies used to use even back in McCollum's days. We would they would really kind of lean on our databases, their internal land system to some degree. We would memorialize all their information. So we would have years of work built into columns back then for them, and eventually they would sell the asset to a company, and we would port all that columns information over to the next company. And in one of these circumstances, that went to another company that kind of need to use our land system. So really, they just kind of followed columns over, and we worked for them, and then that company decided to sell the asset again, and that went to other company. And at that point, they kind of wanted to pull all this into Quorum, which we poured into Quorum, and we're still helping work their projects now. So that was a that was a good story. And I guess another one I know that we're going to ask me about. It's another a big benefit to databases is another client had approached me because they worked with us in 2008 in columns, and we did a ton of title for them back in the day, and they were essentially going to move all this title to another company. Their title was going to buy their information, and they approached us and they're like, "Hey, I'm just curious if you have all this stuff." And we had it all still in the database, had all the data sets, so we were able to go and pull that in and quickly tell this new group that's going to inherit it how many acres we have in our system, how many tracts of title we have, when we ran it, and it was all in one place. It was searchable. Whereas some of the other groups they work with, it's just kind of a Dropbox full of stuff, and we're still kind of churning through that, trying to make sense of, how many acres is this? We're trying to get this on the map, and it's extremely more challenging. Whereas ours, I was able to tell them within an hour exactly what we had, which was great.
How long have you been working through that Dropbox?
We've been on it for, I mean, it's probably been about a month now, and we're still trying to make sense of it. It's just a little, it's difficult, but we're getting there.
That's wild. So an hour to get the information versus a month of probably really costly time to do that. Now, what if they wanted to redo, like, hey, we didn't store all that in columns in the database or Kudu, um, but so we have to go and redo all that work. What would that have costed them?
Just broad numbers, but I think that we threw out. Let's just say there's a you're paying $500 a landman is just like an easy round number, and maybe every tract is, let's say it's taking you 8 days to do a mineral tract, which is honestly probably pretty conservative. I think that we kind of figured that was what do we come up here. So I think that's where I got 500 times eight, and let's say there's 500 tracks. That's $2 million. So it's millions of dollars of intellectual data that is really beneficial to hold on to, and it's for that part. And with this project, there's over 30,000 acres that we had in our database. So if you kind of think about redoing all of that, it would have been really, really costly. So big
Yeah,
value. And so now instead of that, we're just having to update it from the early 2000s to current, where instead of starting over from scratch.
yeah, that's huge. I mean, a big thing to realize is that your data is only as valuable as it is accessible. Like having all that data that you're continuing to sift through for over a month, like, yeah, it's still valuable, but now you're spending a lot of money just to get it clean and accessible. So being able to have that from the get-go with Kudu is fantastic.